Hello and welcome to another Writer's Showcase. I'm quite happy to be here again with you guys, the 0 people who are in chat already. Allow me to bring in my wonderful guests. First off, Crosshaler.
I'm back.
Pleasure to see you as ever. Alrighty. Let me see. I got another thing. Let's do this one.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello.
That's just gonna be my thing from now on, isn't it?
I approve.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have liked for a Doom-related one, but, that's beside the point.
Oh, you can just send it to me. I can cut it up for you. Just send me a clip if I can.
Oh, sure.
I just didn't have anything on hand, and it seemed appropriate. Alrighty, and last.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Had to unmute for a moment. Idiocracy. I'm always. That's always a good one.
Yeah.
Oh, Blue's here.
Hey.
Blue's in the comments.
Yay. Hi, Blue. How's it going? Alrighty. Well, I think that what I'll do is I'll probably read Akos's first, then Lucia and Carl all can read their stuff, and then I'll read Aspiring Writer, and then if he hasn't arrived, then I'll read my stuff. Okay.
Hello there.
I can do that. Hey, Tarek.
Hey yo. Always a pleasure. Alrighty. Okay. Oh, is this new? Or is this just kind of the first one re-edited?
It's a new stuff.
Oh. Well, this is interesting. Okay. Cool. Alrighty. The Samsara Quartet Prologue. Just how fine is the line between pride and arrogance? To claim a vision, to walk down a path to its final conclusion, with intricate plans and infinite resolve, is a task that could grow so monumental it would crush a man under its weight, or become so pervasive it would outlive its originator. Not even the most calculating schemer or the wisest sage can wholly comprehend the true scale of the cosmos, from which mortal man has continually tried to wrestle control from. Time and time again, they failed, and they kept on trying and on failing. Yet who's to say that one day they won't succeed? Nyroth Sergius was thought to be one of the greatest of his kind, great in mirth, cunning in mind, and strong in spirit. He was a living, breathing edifice of noble qualities. Yet the path that laid him through the dust and blood-stained fields of war, the path that brought his people loot and filled the coffers of his country, had brought him to a place that was undisturbed for the time, urged by time immemorial, the Sanctum. The island that bowed to powers of particular characteristics, where time and space was but a plaything for extraordinary powers, a shadow depository of incredible wealth and knowledge, the home of the elusive ghost, the deity of thievery and wisdom, who answers to many names, but was known to most as the Guanhivale, or simply the Voyager. 'Tis a shame it had to come to this, said he, as he stood upon the foredeck of his war galley, dark eyes gazing out onto the war-torn horizon, nostrils filled with the scent of acrid smoke. Initially, he had not intended to wage war or upon the Voyager's keep, but her stubborn refusal to share with him the knowledge he yearned for had forced his hand. Now the sanctum was wrought with green beds of arcane flames, spewing serpentine trails of smoke toward onto the pale skies, writhing and snapping like the numerous heads of a hydra, and the soft amber red horizons of yonder, or Akeen. I've never heard that word before. Interesting. But the swooping beasts of necrotic machinery. Meanwhile, his trusted loyal men shed their blood on the pale gray shores beneath dreadful shadows of colossal black stone monoliths. It was not a man of courage or in skill they suffered, but raw, unrepentant might of beasts, hurled forth from the myriad of pocket dimensions that were once their homes. But upon the obsidian pathway that rolled from the great gray mountain like the swollen black tongue of a prehistoric beast marched his strongest ally, Jacob the Golem. A man made of clay and sorcery, long forgotten, whose stone flesh could weather the bite of claws and fangs and bronze and iron, and whose spellcraft and knowledge was greater than the wisest of Corinthian scholars. Armed with a great maul, he swept aside packs of sinuous reptiles born of hellish realms and crushed the skulls and bones of lumbering behemoths raised on frozen landscapes of distant time. I am in distant worlds. Behind him marched Narath's best men, clad in armors of viridescent green and powerful red, bearing great bronze shields and long iron-headed spikes that glimmered with amber and silvery lights. Stained with blood and drenched with sweat, these men marched proudly behind the golem. For these men were forged for war and quarrel. Veterans of many campaigns, whose faces the wrath of savage desert tribes of the east and ferocious horsemen of the west, pirates of the southeast shores, and even stern ruthlessness of their own kind. Narath folded his arm in acknowledgement of his victory, then turned to his right-hand men and said, "Cassel, 'tis time for us to take the land. Send in all our reserved." "It will be done, legate," said the young, bright-haired man, holding his helmet under his arm and a horn in the other. The booming shrike of the oxen horn had flown through the air, and at once the galleys of war had whipped the azure blue tides with their lanky oars. Low gate and sharp nose, the vessels plunged forth like great centipedes, sliding on their waves of the cold ocean and bit deep into the gray sands with their starkly curved beaks. Beset by the fields of fire and brimstone, Narath and his bronze-clad guards followed the long path Jacob made clear for them. The defiant wind tore at his black hair and vermilion cape. His eyes were filled with the crackling cacophony of burning timber and roaring, panicking wilderness. His sharp, angular features remained stern, even when set upon by a hulking, pale-haired monster. It came from his right, bursting from the wall, all of flame-bitten jungle leaves. Its hide was stained with blood, ashes and burned spots, and its face, like that of a bear, etched upon the body of a great gorilla, bearing curved claws that could bisect a man with a single swipe. Narath acted quickly and without regard for his safety. He two-handed his ornate battle axe and charged forth. So quickly his guards could barely keep up with his pace. The beast lunged forth, and Narath ducked beneath it. He found himself by the creature's right, then swung his axe with all the might his muscled arms and broad shoulders could muscle, and clove of it deep into its knee. The creature roared and whined, but ere it could make another move, the bodyguards buried their spearheads into the belly and neck of the beast, while Naroth edged out his weapon and hewed off its hideous head. Face spotted with glistening blood, he stood above his foe like the hero of a mythical quarrel, etched into a colorful mural. How strange, he thought. These men celebrated him if he achieved a feat no man could, while themselves facing beasts like these by the hundreds on that day. But while Naroth was occupied by the strange thoughts of the doubting mind, and whilst the golem shattered the seals and bolts of the mangled gates in dense, thick-framed ebony, a shade had slipped by amongst their ranks. It was but a shadow among the roiling waves, sleek and subtle, sliding through between the Panther Gate war galleys. Occupied by the work, their soldiers did not even glance over the elusive apparition, but it was them who were watched by eyes that shone like a pair of enchanted sapphires. Beyond the realm of mortal perception and corporeal mass, within the plane parallel yet untouchable, there was a ship made from material alien to the planet and enchanted by magic, spawned at the very center of the cosmos. It was dark and rugged, shaped like a long knife, sharpened to a thin, pointed edge. It had neither oars nor sails, but was moved by luminescent energies that resided within the great emerald spear. Perched atop an ancient device, it had but one crewman, and his name was Khan. A solemn solemnity had bristled in the mind of his passenger, for it was a long time since she had suffered defeat, and never once had she saw in her home swallowed by flames. But she was an ancient being, and as such the concepts of despair and hate did not register in her mind the same way it would for a mortal man. Naroth might be a clever man, a skilled man, a visionary. He was not a wise man, and to raise her home like this was anything but wise. O old friend, my beloved enemy, manifold are the ways of thine guile and malice. A millennia of dust has rested mine caution and sharpened thine blade. And whilst I laid hibernated, thou had gathered allies in the shadows of dying ages. But beware, whilst thou harbors this sweet fruit of success, I will spring
Hello?
Is
Go mute.
something up? Did we lose the commander?
Oh no.
Oh.
Hold on. It's Lord Captain Commander Dunn.
Ah, there is no such thing as lordship. He's contrivance of bourgeoisie.
Well, there does exist lordship in the 41st millennium. And we lost him.
Yep, he's gone.
Oh boy. Does
Oh,
that mean
boy.
the stream dies?
I don't know. All the ads that I've been getting for StreamYard have advertised that the stream doesn't die when you lose your connection. So
Huh.
I guess. Seriously, has anyone else just been getting bombarded with StreamYard ads?
No, not really.
Um,
My internet connection has been a bit iffy today, but it usually is iffy. However, I was also wondering. Oh, yeah, well, they just confirmed that it's still up. Yeah, about 15 minutes.
yeah. Well,
I was actually wondering because he was breaking up on my end, so I was wondering, is it him or is it me? Oh, he's back.
he lives again.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Like, the internet all over my house just died for a second. Even my phone died. It wasn't just my computer.
Damn.
Sorry.
Well, that happened to me quite a bit.
Where did I cut off? I apologize.
At the very end.
Oh,
That's okay.
oh, thank goodness. It's a very interesting story. So is the style that you're going for kind of like kind of a shorter, kind of more omniscient narrator type thing?
Yes, it's all omniscient. Yeah.
Okay. And you're kind of
But
going,
it's going to be a longer work otherwise.
okay. And is this kind of like the initial like outline of events, or what it? So what exactly is it?
It's the prologue
Okay.
of Beginner's
Okay.
Story.
I like it.
Okay.
It has kind of like a mythic tone.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah. There were kind of some editing things, but I imagine like a lot of that's probably just like the language barrier and translation thing. So it's probably fine. And
It's
in your
still
own
not a
language.
final draft. They're gonna have to finish the whole stuff and then do the prose at the very last.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just kind of like at points like there were just like little editing editing errors, but but otherwise I think that like those are kind of like fairly easily fixable. I didn't notice any like plot holes or anything.
I did have a couple notes. One of the things I noticed was if you're trying to go for a sort of mythic outline or sort of a genre for this particular part of the story, I did find the reference to the Hydra a little distracting. You know, because if you're creating your own mythology, which I assume is what you're trying to do with this, I think it wouldn't quite work to reference another mythological tradition without at least like trying to make it, you know, something of your own in a way. Like maybe reference instead some other multi-headed beast, and you know, just go do a little bit about that multi-headed beast, which has all these other stories attached to it, but I can't tell them now.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm debating on whether how much should I intertwine stuff into this one, because the way this word works is not entirely disconnected from other words.
From our world's mythology?
To any mythology at all. And it's part of a sort of, it's not a multiverse. It's not a multiverse, not entirely. It's a
shared universe, I guess.
I do have to say, like,
sort of.
I do have to say maybe it's just me, but I kind of just like kind of when I hear like Hydra, I kind of roll with it because, like, I guess you could call it a Laden, kind of after the the 100-headed dragon.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't like it's kind of now entered D&D as just a monster that you can fight and just a bunch of other places.
I mean, there is an argument to be made that it's ubiquitous and it's lost its like original Greek mythology connotations. I was considering making the same reference to like the use of the adjective hellish, but I mean, plenty of mythologies have an underworld where people are punished, so I thought that would have been that was fair.
Since our since our concept of hell, like at least the word, as far as I know, is also from Norse.
Yeah.
Since the Niflheim and hell are indistinguishable.
If I recall correctly, hell was even the name of the goddess of the dead.
Yeah, that's true. Alrighty.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Arabic has such connotations.
Isn't
I know Hebrew has a Sheol. It's the
that's
it's not traditionally like a place where you'd be punished, but it's more like a land of shadows. You know, just not necessarily like being actively tortured for eternity, but being banished from the presence of God.
Oh, that's interesting. That's
Even
a very
Buddhism
different
has
take
hell.
from the Islamic version, which is, by the way, is named Jahannam, and it's literally just described as a pit of fire, and it's just horrible, terrible things, and I'm not going to get into it. It's a long story.
Well, there's all kinds of cross-pollination in that whole mishmash area of the world.
Yeah.
Buddhism too has hell. Actually, 2.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
Cool.
anyway, who's next?
I believe it is Carl, and then you, and then I will read. Actually, Carl, if you could read Aspiring Writer, that would actually be that would be convenient. And then I can just read my stuff if he's not here. Would you be okay with that, or shall I read it?
Yeah, sure. I can read that. You can DM me on Discord with the link to a Google Doc or something.
Thank you.
And in the meanwhile, I can start us off with mine.
All right, awesome.
Excellent. So, as you may know, I have been reading from the book that I'm working on right now, which is the sequel to The Gates of Dawn, my first book. And I've decided that I'm going to share some of my stuff from The Gates of Dawn right now.
Cool.
First, a little summary for people who aren't yet familiar with it. Paul Bowman certainly doesn't think he's anybody special. But when he accidentally wins a minor victory, this proudly working-class former freight hauler is catapulted into the limelight as the most famous soldier in the Kingdom of Aurora. Now given an airship to command, Paul finds himself forced to deal with subordinates who look down on him, superiors gleefully waiting for him to fail, and a looming plot that threatens the very existence of the kingdom. So that's the story we're going with. And we are going to start when he first gets his airship and meets some of those subordinates who look down on him. So,
I think Tarek put it best when he said, "Yay, political intrigue."
well, we'll be taking a little bit of a break from political intrigue for a bit more of a personal story for the next few days. So, let us begin. This is from Chapter 6, The Dreadnought. A single glass candle on the ceiling lit the bridge of the Dreadnought, casting large pools of shadow behind the monitors and exposed piping inside the walls. In one corner, a large metal bulkhead that really should have been installed by now had been propped over the heating vent so as to direct the flow of warmth towards the center of the bridge, where 5 men sat playing a game of cards. The men were officers, 3 lieutenants and 2 ensigns. A full house. 15 for 2, Lieutenant Junior Grade Malcolm Barlow announced as he laid the 5 of flags on the empty fuel drum that had been repurposed as a table. Everyone nodded as he took his points on the ivory pegboard. Lieutenant Junior Grade Archibald Hakefelt considered his hand for a moment before playing the 6 of coins. 1 and 20 for 3. Hey, wait a minute! You can't do that! Young Ensign Powell Wagner cried out. This isn't blackjack. 1 and 20 doesn't earn any points. He's not getting any points for the 1 in 20, Ensign Marius Noel Hamilton said. He's getting the points for a run of 3. He pointed to the 7 of pikes that Wagner himself had played before Barlow's 5 of flags. See there? 5, 6, 7. Run for 3. But they aren't in order, Wagner insisted. It goes 7, 5, and then 6. That's not a run. They don't have to be in order, Wagner, Lieutenant Wolfram Howard Wingate said, slouching in the captain's chair and not looking up from the cigarette he was rolling. We're not playing by army rules. Runs scored during the count don't need to be in sequence, just consecutive. Take your points, Archie. Sorry, kid. Archie shook his head at Wagner and took his 3 points. Wagner was just about at that age where boys want to prove themselves worthy to be considered men. Unfortunately, Wagner himself had never attended the Auroran Military Academy at South Sands, which marked him as something of an outsider and a favored target of abuse from the rest of the bridge officers. That sort of thing might fly in the army, but not in the fleet. He was also, in no uncertain terms, an idiot. 9 and 20 for 4, Hamilton said with a grin as he played the 8 of wings for a run of 4. Everyone looked at Wagner. The kid scratched behind his ear, a habit when he was embarrassed. Go, he mumbled without playing a card. Go, Barlow said with a nod, followed by Archie. And one for the go, Hamilton said, taking his point as the count was reset. The game continued. Do you think we'll get orders soon? Wagner asked after a few moments. Nope, Wolfram said bluntly while smoothing out the tobacco in his cigarette. God, I hope not. Barlow laughed and took a swig of something from a small hip flask in his jacket. The war's finally over, and I'm not sorry I missed the whole bloody thing. Me neither, Hamilton said. Yeah, Archie said. I don't see us getting orders anytime soon. Well, what about this new captain we's getting? Wagner said. I heard tell he's supposed to be a big hero from the war and such. Can't have been much of an hero if he got himself shuffled off to this bloody dump. Barlow laughed again, stowing the hip flask in his jacket. Why are you so eager for orders anyway, kid? Wolfram said. Learn to enjoy your downtime. God knows we've got plenty of it. You never know, Wagner shrugged. We could get orders. Oh, we're a peacetime fleet now, kid, Archie said. What are they even going to order us to do? Well, what about them fleet exercises coming up in a month or so? Wagner said. Well, them should be pretty exciting and such. Archie laughed. Yeah, like we're getting into those exercises. Worshipping the fleet, they're really going to give us that sort of glory. He glanced down at his empty hand and then around the table. Right, is everybody out then? Barlow, Hamilton, and Wagner all nodded. Right, show your hands, call your points. The four players collected their cards while Wolfram continued rolling his cigarette. Since he was on the dealer's left, Wagner showed his hand first. 6, 7, 8, 9, and a 3 on the deck. Run of 4 and 2 15s. That's 8 points. Wagner took his points, and Barlow showed his hand. While Barlow called his points, Wingate leaned forward to borrow Archie's matchbook. As he lit his cigarette, he whispered in Archie's ear, Muggins, flush on Wagner. Archie didn't react right away, but discreetly glanced at Wagner's hand. Sure enough, all 4 cards matched the suit of the 3 of pikes on the top deck. A flush, and Wagner had neglected to claim the 4 points he might have earned from it. Archie nodded subtly at Wingate, who leaned back casually in his captain's chair to enjoy the cigarette. Muggins! Archie called out as soon as everyone else had declared and taken their points. Barlow and Hamilton immediately glanced down at their hands, frantically checking to see if they'd missed any points. Wagner just looked confused. This was probably the first time he'd encountered the Muggins rule. Archie continued, Wagner at a flush. What? Wagner glanced down at his hand. All your cards are pikes, Archie said, pointing out the suits. Deck card too. That's a flush. 4 points. Wait, so I get 4 extra points then? Wagner's eyes lit up. No, Barlow nodded his head to indicate Archie. He gets the 4 extra points. You didn't declare your flush when you had the chance. Oh, come on, Wagner protested. But Wolfram cut him off. The only full lieutenant on the bridge. His word was law. You can forfeit if you want, but if you want to keep playing with us, you play by fleet rules. We clear? All right, Wagner said resignedly. Archie took his stolen points and let his free hand wander down out of sight to the other players, where he exchanged a secret handshake with Wingate. Wolfram Howard Wingate had been Archie's best friend ever since the first day they met at South Sands Academy. Wolfram was one of the most brilliant people he'd ever met. A quick mind, a good eye for tactics, and an inexhaustible reserve of personal charisma. Paradoxically, he'd also had incredibly low marks in almost every course. It hadn't helped that during the biannual South Sands War Games, he had regularly disregarded the established objectives, with not a fair bit of cheating involved, usually leading to mass confusion. If he hadn't been the son of Lord Orpheus Chester Wingate himself, Wolfram would have probably been dismissed several times over. Archie had been almost the exact opposite. A well-organized, model student, but, alas, he freely admitted, one without the same inborn spark of brilliance and charisma that Wolfram had been born with. He was also common-born. His father was a fisherman, and his mother worked in a textile mill out in Newport. They'd spent years saving up the money to send Archie to South Sands. And of course, once he got there, Archie quickly noticed that being common-born instantly put him at the bottom of the social hierarchy. All the other cadets at South Sands saw him little better than an up-jumped pauper. All of the other cadets, that was, except for Wolfram. For whatever reason, he'd never treated Archie as anything less than an equal. And Archie had reciprocated in kind. They'd rigged wagers together. They'd raided the commissary after hours together. Wolfram had even helped Archie shed his native thick Newport accent. And in return, Archie had helped Wolfram cheat on his final examinations. When Wolfram had been given his current position as tactical officer of the Dreadnought, a recommendation from his Lord Father, no less, Archie had, of course, immediately requested a position beside him as well. If I'd known what this bloody ship was, Archie thought. He glanced at Wolfram. The kid had the worst part of the deal by far. Archie had just made a foolish mistake out of loyalty to a friend. Wolfram had been betrayed, shunted away to a dead-end position by his own father. That had to sting worse than anything Archie had suffered. Oh, hell, if I'd known what this ship was, I'd have still requested a position here. It's the least I can do for a friend. The sound of footsteps coming up the stairwell to the bridge brought the game to an abrupt halt. 5 pairs of eyes turned to stare at the door, and then with a flurry of motion, the cards and ivory pegboard vanished from sight. Archie saw Wolfram extinguish his cigarette with his thumb and forefinger and wave his free hand about to disperse the smoke. If the wrong person caught them slacking off... If Commander Vaughn catches us like this... Archie shuddered. An air of tension settled over the bridge. Wolfram was the 3rd highest ranking officer on the ship, after Lieutenant Commander Vaughn and Lieutenant Butler, who was senior to him. If it was any other officer, Wolfram could pull rank, and Butler was usually laid back enough to let them be. But if it was that tight-ass Vaughn... 5 pairs of eyes stared at the door in dread silence. Finally, a man emerged onto the bridge whom none of them have ever seen before. He was a little taller than average, with brown hair and a patch over his left eye. His uniform, clearly new, bore 4 golden bars on his cuffs and a braid over his shoulder. Wolfram jumped to his feet. "Captain on deck!" Archie and the others quickly followed Wolfram's lead, standing to attention in a line and saluting. The new captain stared blankly about for a moment, then awkwardly returned the salute as Lieutenant Butler clambered out of the stairwell after him. "Right then," the captain said unsteadily. I'm Paul Bowman, and I'm your new captain, I think." Archie shuffled nervously while standing at attention. Something was supposed to happen, right? There had to be some sort of ceremony involved with a transfer of command. But Archie didn't know it. Did Wolfram know it? Anyway, how would you transfer command? Captain Hannigan had retired months ago. Well, finally, mercifully, Lieutenant Butler broke the silence. "Line up and present yourselves to the captain." All 5 officers, clearly relieved at having something to do, lined up, and, I guess Wagner was on the edge. He would go first. "Ensign Powell Eugene Wagner!" he shouted like some parade ground grunt. "Communicate—" "Damn it! Calm the hell down, kid!" Captain Bowman raised a hand. "I'm standing right here. You don't have to wake up the whole goddamn ship." "Sorry, sir." Wagner lowered his voice, yet stood even more rigid as he continued. "As I said, I am the communications officer aboard the good ship Dreadnought, sir." "Right. That's better." Captain Bowman nodded and moved on to the next officer. Ensign Marius Noel Hamilton, helmsman, sir. Hamilton was much calmer than Wagner had been. Captain Bowman nodded and moved on. Lieutenant Archibald Warren Hakefeld, Archie said. I'm the navigator, sir. Captain Bowman looked at Archie oddly. What was your rank again, kid? Archie jumped. Sorry, sir. I meant Lieutenant Junior grade, sir. Captain Bowman must have clearly recognized the insignia on his shoulder boards that marked him as junior grade. Right. Captain Bowman nodded slowly and moved on to Wolfram. Lieutenant Wolfram Howe. Okay, seriously, Captain Bowman interrupted. Why the hell is everyone saying it that way? It's pronounced lieutenant. Archie blinked. Wolfram had taken great pains to show Archie how to mimic the speech patterns of his noble-born classmates at the academy. Archie no longer noticed when he used the upper-class pronunciation of lieutenant. It had become almost second nature to him. Sorry, Captain, Wolfram said, slowly and deliberately, with a tone that told Archie that he meant nothing of the sort. Captain Bowman sighed and waved a dismissive hand at the kid. Go on and introduce yourself. Lieutenant, he announced every single syllable of the word. Wolfram Howard Wingate, tactical officer, sir. Captain Bowman's eyes traced Wolfram up and down. Is somebody in your family a lord? Oh, you've met my lord father? Wolfram's eyes lit up. Yeah, I met the guy. Captain Bowman nodded. Bit of a prick if you ask me, but I guess he does his good work. Archie barely managed to choke down a laugh. He'd only ever met Wolfram's lord father once in passing, but his reputation was nothing short of legendary. To hear that uncompromising paragon of duty and discipline reduced to a bit of a prick was the most hilariously subversive thing he had ever heard. The sudden furrowing of Wolfram's brow told Archie that his best friend did not share his mirth in the slightest. He could already tell that Wolfram and Captain Bowman were not going to get on well. Meanwhile, Captain Bowman had moved on to the last man in the lineup. Lieutenant Junior Grade Malcolm Barlow. Bosun, sir. Captain Bowman nodded with approval, probably at his pronunciation. All right, stand at ease, people. Another figure emerged onto the bridge in the stairwell, carrying a porcelain teapot and a number of mugs on a silver tray. One of the wave girls on a late-night coffee run. Her eyes met Barlow's, and she blushed. I've brought you some coffee, gentlemen, she said, and then noticed the captain. Oh, sir, this is Jesslyn Myers, Butler said, stepping forward to make introductions. Ms. Myers of the Wave, this is Captain Bowman. Captain Bowman, Jesslyn Myers of the Women's Airborne Volunteer Echelon. Myers curtsied very carefully so as not to upset her tray. Can I get you anything, Captain? Captain Bowman bowed slightly. No, thanks, kid. I don't need anything right now. Myers curtsied again and scurried over to deliver the coffee. Excuse me, Captain, said a woman's voice from behind Bowman. I said I don't need anything right now. It's okay, Captain Bowman said. Archie was about to take a sip of the steaming liquid when Wolfram frantically tapped his arm and nodded at the woman who had spoken. He glanced over his shoulder, and Archie nearly choked on his coffee. She was a very tall woman, almost as tall as Captain Bowman. Or maybe Captain Bowman was almost as tall as her? Archie couldn't tell which, but it was definitely one or the other. Her uniform wasn't anything at all like that of the Wave. A narrower skirt that only reached her knees, easier for moving, and a double-breasted jacket of an officer with 3 golden bars on the cuffs. A commander's insignia. Her dark brown hair was tied back in a tight bun, and a pair of narrow spectacles were perched on the bridge of her nose. Captain, she began again. This time Captain Bowman raised his voice. I already told you I don't need anything right now. Go bother someone else. Damn it, you girls are useless. By now, a terrified silence had settled over the bridge. Barlow had even stopped trying to flirt with Myers, who was almost cowering with fear. What? What is it? Captain Bowman seemed unaware. Butler cleared his throat. Captain Bowman, may I present Lieutenant Commander the Lady Fiora Marie Vaughn, your XO. Captain Bowman was silent for a moment, looking Commander Vaughn up and down, taking stock of her. Wait, she's my what? Your executive officer, Butler reiterated. Right, Captain Bowman said, nodding slowly. And what does that mean? She, Butler hesitated. She handles the, administrative responsibilities of the ship. Captain Bowman considered for a moment. So what, like a clerk, like a secretary? Archie could see Vaughn's left eye twitch. Anywhere else, that would have been a scream. Someone squeaked on the bridge. It might have been him. Butler rubbed the back of his head awkwardly. It's not quite like that. It's more like she's your first mate, Barlow said uneasily. Captain Bowman, shrugged. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. He turned to face Vaughn. So you were gonna say something then? I was going to introduce myself, Captain, Vaughn said in a perfectly neutral tone. Yes, Captain Bowman said, and extended a hand. Well, it's good to meet you, I guess. Lieutenant Commander. Vaughn looked at Captain Bowman's hand for a moment, then shook it, very carefully, as though it were some disgusting rag that she would be washing her hand after touching. Likewise, I'm sure, Captain, she said. Right. The captain glanced about the bridge. Is that everybody then? For the moment, sir, Butler said. It's past midnight, I'm afraid. Most of the crew is still asleep. Well then, no need to wake them up, Captain Bowman said. I can meet the rest of the crew in the morning. Yes. Very, very good idea, Butler said. We'll assemble the crew for the morning, and I'll show you to your quarters then. Everyone watched the pair leave in silence. Myers, was it? Vaughn said after a short, tense pause. You may retire for the evening. The girl jumped suddenly. Are you sure, mistress? I think these gentlemen have enough coffee to see them through the rest of their watch. Her dark blue glare swept over the 5 young officers huddled about the fuel drum. Besides, they have a bulkhead to install. Very good, mistress, Myers said as she picked up her tray and scurried off the bridge. It's Mom, girl, Vaughn corrected half-heartedly and followed the girl down the stairwell. Archie glanced around the makeshift table. Any semblance of merriment had long since vanished. After a moment, Hamilton reached down and picked up his ivory pegboard. All the pegs had fallen out in his haste to stow it. Their points were all lost. Right then, another match? And that'll do it.
Nice.
Very good introduction, I have to say.
Yeah, I know that's a lot of characters, but most of them are going to be a little important.
Yeah, like I noticed that the biggest issue for me was that I had trouble keeping track of who's who and what personality traits and ranks even, but you know, I guess.
Yeah, there was an extended middle section with the 5 officers that I had to cut for time.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which goes into quite a bit more detail.
Also, I'm gonna say this right now. I really liked the bit where where the lieutenant pronunciation, like the higher classes pronounces it as lieutenant and the lower classes pronounce it as lieutenant. And he even gave the captain a freaking New Jersey / Boston accent. It's like it's perfect.
Well, his accent is based off of Boston.
Yeah, like I was trying to nail exactly where it was because I'm on the West Coast. I'm not very familiar. So if anybody's from either one of those two cities, please don't murder me for mixing up the accents.
At least you didn't say it was from New York.
Oh, yeah.
If you had said it was in New York, I would have to seriously consider calling in a tactical airstrike on your position.
It didn't even occur to me.
Good. Yeah, I gotta say the lieutenant thing was no end of pain for my editor, because I actually am. They don't actually spell it differently in Commonwealth English versus American English, but in order to make sure the gag really stuck, I actually had to spell it differently.
Oof.
Ooh, Becca, thank you for the comment. Considering the amount of characters, the characters are pretty distinct.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's actually this is actually the first time I've tried putting accents to the characters. Most of them are just generic upper classes. Although Hamilton is he's from one of the out countries, like the Annal area, the backwoods. So I've listed I've written in one of the scenes in my new book that he has an Annalarian twang, which I've decided means Australian. It's a mishmash between Australian and a Kiwi accent, because honestly, nobody really knows the difference between them.
Oh boy!
Go get that dingbar out of good old Isles mouth. Otherwise, we ain't gonna get back 8 in the morning on me boyos.
Yeah, it's fair income.
Yeah, that was actually something else I noticed. Your recitation of it, everybody sounded different from each other. So, yeah, that was great.
Mm-hmm.
Wish I had that kind of talent, but yeah.
Comes from years of watching British TV. Becca, how dare you damn me with faint praise?
Oh man!
All right. So who would be next?
I believe it is you.
Yes.
All right. So before we get into it, I just wanted to note that this chapter did not originally exist in my previous drafts of the book. However, this is just recently created to smoothen out Act 1 in particular, because there's an introduction to a character that somebody has stated came out of nowhere, was jarring, and I was like, okay, well, I can take advantage of this then. So, the brief recap is that Lucia has just been authorized by the Grand Marshals themselves to be trained as a member of the Vanguard Corps. And we are about, yeah, that's actually just about it. That's everything you need to know. So, Chapter 4, The Stranger. The projectile zoomed through the air with a loud thunderclap, missing the dummy's head by millimeters. A buzzer rang, and the remaining hollow projected figures disappeared. Frustrated, Lucia flicked on the railer's safety before slapping it down. She placed her elbows on the table and cradled her head in her hands, eyes shut and teeth gritted. Despite the chirping of birds and the sound of flowing water, she couldn't calm herself. "Come on! I nailed it!" she snarled, getting off the table and pointing to where she was aiming. Her eyes traced to Tara, who stood arms folded in form-fitting black clothes, half expecting a response from her. Tara would just shrug her shoulders and look confused. Daylight beamed through the trees at the forested shooting range and against Lucia's bare skin, black sports bra, and shorts, heating her even more. Her eyes returned to the railer. hearing her own pulse and the sound of chattering wildlife. She slipped her fingers into her hair. I only got half of them. I need to be getting at 80% accuracy, and I'm only landing 15. There's no way I'll qualify at this rate. Wiz, you're right. She removed her hands from her head, letting them fall by her sides. Lucia turned her attention to the calm Terra. Kind of a dumb thing to ask, isn't it? Lucia scolded her in her head before remembering it's her friend she's talking to. She exhaled. Yeah, I'm fine. The tension left her forehead as the stress quelled. Her eyes started back to the railer. Do you think there's something wrong with it? Tara shrugged and walked up to examine the firearm, staring down the scope and iron sight of the black-cased weapon. Maybe. Could you start it up again? Lucia reached under the table and hit the start button as Tara reloaded. The hollow projector counted down in front of Tara. Lucia saw the looks in her eyes. They were focused and wide open, as though she were taking in all of her surroundings at once. Then, with inhuman speed and accuracy, she shot down the first hologram projected. A hollow dummy ran across the forested area, hiding behind the trees. Tara landed a headshot regardless. The next would pop out and she'd snipe it. Lucia's eyes widened, her breath slipping from her lungs. It was one shot, one kill. Tara landed one hit after another, every round finding its mark once she squeezed the trigger. Lucia's jaw slacked, her mind in a daze. What the fuck? The buzzer sounded, yet Tara had already reloaded the firearm, flicked the safety on, and set it down. Lucia stood frozen in place, sweat forming around her hairline. The score displayed in front of her, a perfect 30, half of which headshots. How am I supposed to compete with that? Looks like it works just fine, Tara commented. Lucia shook her head and blinked. Before Tara could address her, Lucia snapped. How did you do that? How are you so good at this? Tara raised an eyebrow and pulled some of her hair back. Lucia noticed them. Cream-colored beads in Tara's hair, ending off with a small orb. You mean you didn't notice the huntress beads? Lucia, perplexed, answered her question with a question. Is that what those are? Tara sighed. Figured you wouldn't know. Practically no one knows my homeworld exists. Lucia, confused, continued her inquiry. You mean Earth? Tara shook her head. There's a swath of space between the USR and the Irrigus Dominion, she explained, getting a nod from Lucia. Yeah, the demilitarized zone. Those planets the USR liberated from the Dominion? It clicked in her head, cutting off her previous thoughts as she switched gears. Wait, you're from one of those worlds, aren't you? Tara nodded, with her voice becoming melancholic. We lived in the countryside, but the government wanted to resettle Earth, so my family left the planet and Lucia waited with bated breath, watching the gloom form in Tara's eyes. Still not talking about it. Lucia felt the dark aura engulf Tara, shrouding her in a thick cloud. The glimmering in her eyes were back, as was the slight shiver in her form. Lucia's heart ached. So she walked out to Tara. She saw a team stream from her eyes. Lucia, feeling the despair infect her, wrapped her arms around Tara, hugging her. She didn't see her eyes shoot open, but she didn't need to. It's okay, she told her. If you need to open up about it, I'm here for you. A warm smile formed on Tara's face as she returned her embrace in kind. Thanks, Liz. Lucia felt her anxiety fade, replaced by warmth. Tara's arm slipped off her, and so Lucia released her. But I'll be fine. Just need some more time. Tara placed her hands on her hips. Come on, Let me show you how to fire this gun. Lucia smiled, eagerly picking up the weapon and standing in front of the stall. Take aim, Tara instructed her, with Lucia raising the rifle. She examined her posture, spotting jitters in her arms, and adjusted Lucia's hand placement. Keep your breathing under control to reduce swaying, and remember, squeeze, don't pull. She saw Tara nod out of the corner of her eye. Most important of all, if you miss, don't panic. No one was born a marksman. Lucia smiled, feeling a surge of confidence. Yeah, I guess it took a lot of practice for you to get that good anyway. Fully adjusted and focused, Lucia felt something crawl in her abdomen and jitter in her chest. The countdown reached 0, and the projections went up. Lucia's pupils dilated, focusing on them one at a time, scoring the first point with the first round. The next would appear, moving in a different direction from last time. Lucia tracing it before firing and landing a headshot. Holy shit, I just did that? She smiled, spotting the next target and taking it out. She continued on for a few seconds more, counting up the score in her head and feeling the excitement flutter in her chest. 20? 21? She grinned. I'm actually going to do it. I'm actually going to. The projectile missed her 20-second target, zipping past it. Lucia blinked, startled. She fired another round, missing again, not knowing her hands were shaking. The target had disappeared, replaced by a new one. It, it's okay. There's still more. She barely missed it before it disappeared, her pupils dilating, feeling the cold grip of fear around her neck. No, 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 no. The excitement turned to panic as she continued, trying to score yet one more point. 23, she counted with renewed optimism, spotting the last dummy and taking the shot. The buzzer sounded, and the round missed, crashing her thoughts and crushing her hopes. Lucia's eyes emptied, her hand still holding onto the rifle, pointed out into the firing range. The final score was displayed in front of the stall, mocking her. Her heart slowed to a near stop, as did her breathing. She felt a swelling in her eyes, tears. I was so close. I was so close, but I. She flicked the safety on, letting the railer slip out of her hands and onto the table. The final shot replayed in her head on loop, the moment her victory was snatched away from her. And she cried. "I- I'm sorry, Tara. Sorry for what?" She heard Tara snap. Lucia pivoted her head to see her. She had an eyebrow slightly cocked up and her mouth slightly open. You did great, Wiss. That was at least a 50% improvement. Lucia felt something dig into her chest and abdomen, like so many blades driving into her. She clenched her fist and tears escaped her eyes. But I failed. I panicked. I couldn't hit him. Who cares? Tara threw her hands in the air. You did so much better than last time. She pointed at her arm. She pointed her arm at the firing range, almost giggling. Hell, at this rate, you'll be scoring a perfect 30 in an hour. The mist cleared from Lucia's eyes, the brightness of the world returning. She looked back at her score, recalling where it was from before. Listen, don't be comparing yourself to me. I grew up doing this shit. Compare yourself to yourself. She pointed at her. Lucia wiped the tears from her eyes as Tara returned to her hands to her hip. You know what? You're right. Lucia felt a smile forming. Of course I'm right. Just stop being so hard on yourself. You're improving, Wiz. It won't be long until you get there. Lucia picked up the railgun, ready to swap the safety off. Then, her right ear twitched. A voice abruptly boomed in the firing range, one that she was barely able to identify as a female. Well, isn't that sweet? Lucia checked over her shoulder, seeing her walk in. She came alone, dressed in the olive green of the Liberator Corps. The woman's head was shaven entirely, her form poorly defined, fair skin, and flat-chested. Lucia, raising an eyebrow, addressed the stranger. I'm sorry, who are you and what are you doing here? She turned to face her. The woman's pupils shrunk, her eyebrows lowering as in coming together. She had her arms crossed and her chin slightly down. This lady couldn't be giving off a worse aura if she tried. The stranger spoke again, her voice like nails on a chalkboard. Lieutenant Jareen from the Liberator Corps. I heard you were the new girl here. Joined planetary security? She shifted her posture, placing a hand on her cheek while keeping the other arm across her chest. Lucia, still holding onto the railer and not dropping her guard, answered back. Yeah, it's a purely defensive corps, meaning if I have to kill anyone, it'll at least be while protecting people. Jareen nodded. Hmm, funny. Almost every woman like you joined that corps. Lucia's eyebrows narrowed, feeling a spark lit in her chest. What do you mean by every woman like me? Jareen's, uh, Jareen's moved her hand from her face, rubbing her fingers together, her eyes darting to her hand. Oh, nothing. Whis, Tara stepped in. I think we better hold on, Tara. Lucia interrupted her. I want to hear what she means by women like me. Jareen's eyes darted away from her fingers into Lucia's eyes. She spoke with such naked aggression, such disgust and hate, that Lucia felt her insides set ablaze with anger. I mean, whores like you. Lucia set down the railgun, aware she would melt it if she continued holding on to it. Honestly, I'm just impressed you're able to hold that rifle, especially with those giant bags of meat on your chest. She continued stroking the flames. Oh, I'm sorry. Silicon. No way a woman fit health no way a healthy, fit woman could have. They're not fake, Lucia let out. Ask my doctor, she says so. Jareen shrugged, unbothered. Still, a bitch like you with titties that big, you don't belong here. This place is for big girls who want to take themselves seriously. Silhouetted whores like you belong on a stripper. Cállate, pendeja! Lucia roared, with eyes blazing with rage as at, at, as she clenched her fist. Tears formed in her eyes as she stared down the smug lieutenant. Despite her outrage, her burning hands, and a raised fist, Jareen didn't even flinch. It was as though she had an invisible shield in front of her. Lucia felt her heart race, and a hand softly placed on her back. She glanced to her right, seeing a concerned Tara. Lucia, forget what she's saying. She's not worth your time. Oh, really now? Jareen's irritating voice caused Lucia's ears to twitch. Bitch, I know who you are. I think you know that I'm right. Tara, eyebrows drawn together, glared at the arrogant officer. You! They heard a voice boom from behind Jareen. Lucia, having collected herself, looked past the lieutenant and to the vanguards escorting Malik in. Raising an eyebrow, Lucia noticed something different about him. Rather than wearing his captain's uniform, he was dressed in a white suit, like a politician. What the hell do you think you're doing? You have no right to be here. Lucia saw the vicious grin on Jareen's face, even before she turned to face Malik. Putting the bitch in her place, she clenched her fists, her insides heating up. Malik, however, would not be so easily enraged. Really? I think her place is in the tiger's seat. Jareen lifted a hand over her mouth, jutting forward as though ready to vomit. She burst out laughing. Her? She pointed behind herself. This bitch couldn't even get past the officer's entrance exam. What makes you? But she did, Malik interrupted, pulling out a hollow pad. Lucia, taken aback, shook her head. Her eyes darted to before her card placed on the shelf under the table. Pulling it out, she looked through the messages, reading the score to herself. I thought I did horribly. But this... She grinned widely, seeing the 89% displayed on her device. She looked up from it, her smile persisting as she saw Jorene's shocked expression. Yet, as she looked back at her smile disappeared. Joreen glared at her eyes fierce and filled with an unbridled rage. Despite this, her posture remained unbroken, all while Lucia felt her legs shiver and goosebumps across her body. Disturbing still, Joreen exited without saying a word. Her her gaze was engraved into Lucia's consciousness. There's something wrong with that woman, she concluded. Regardless, her sights returned to Malik, who addressed the two women. My apologies. The rally ran later than I expected. Lots of excited voters. Lucia, raising an eyebrow in confusion, quickly recalled what he meant. Right, you're running for office. Anyway, Wiss, how are you doing here? Lucia looked up, locking eyes with him. Terra, however, would answer for her. Improving. She's almost hit the benchmark. She just needs to control her she just needs to get control of her nerves. Lucia, glancing back at the score displayed, felt her chest hollow. I see, Malik said. How about you give it a few more rounds, then we call it for the day? Lucia looked back at Malik, nodding. He smiled and placed a hand on her shoulder. You'll get there, Wiss. We believe in you. With a soft grin, she answered back. Thanks. I won't let you down. And that concludes chapter 4.
Oh, yeah, there's the Latina. Cállate, pendeja!
Yep. I was just thinking over here. Okay, so I was originally going to have her punch Joreen in the face, but that would be assaulting an officer, and we can't have that because then she'd just be kicked out. So I decided, let's have her curse her out. And let's have her do it in Spanish, because why not?
Works. I like it.
Yeah. Well, if you're gonna swear, you may as well swear so that the offending party knows that you are being sweared at, but not necessarily what they're being saying.
I mean, she's a native Spanish speaker. However, she hasn't spoken the language in a while, so I think it was like kind of just a primal thing that she just pulled up from deep inside.
Kind of like when sometimes on Modern Family, Sofia Vergara will just lapse into Spanish.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
I don't really have much feedback. It's fairly simple. Pretty straightforward, just regular sparring scene. I think it's nice that like she's not an automatic good shot. I thought that was interesting. Though I was kind of thrown off. I was just like, was this a flashback? Or I wasn't quite sure whether this was a flashback or not when it started. That was kind of my only like bit of complaint, and that I was kind of confused by.
Yeah. I decided to start the chapter a little differently from the others because usually it's just like establishing the scene, but this time I decided let's have it like in the middle of the action, like literally just have it in the middle of near the end of her firing session.
Oh, totally fine. It works. I think the like just like since it's like she's shooting, I was kind of just maybe it's just me. I could be weird. I just kind of automatically assumed that it was a flashback since she was practicing shooting.
Yeah. Also, I'd love Tarek's response to the chat. Irish cop. All right. What's going on here?
All right. What's going on here?
All right. What are you doing here? So you're putting out English accents instead of Irish accents. Are you from the Northern Ireland? Don't tell me you're Protestant scum.
My God. But yeah, I got a few questions. So, what did you think of the tone of the chapter? Do you think it flowed well, or is it too jarring?
You see, I told the lad, but he won't learn. I don't know what I'm doing, so
I don't know what I'm doing either. I have a terrible Irish accent, but I try to be at least somewhat elevated Irish, kind of like how the man who reads Irish accents in Artemis Fowl, I'll do it. It's
Yeah.
very, very, very good.
I'm gonna be frank.
oh,
I
man,
can.
if you really want to get a good sample on an Irish accent, Father Ted.
Mm.
Father Ted. It's an Irish sitcom, and it is just one of the funniest things you will ever watch. I'm pretty sure it's actually free to watch on YouTube, or you can probably find it easily enough.
Yeah.
So,
So
boy.
I got a question. Was huh?
Oh yeah, the pacing. I thought I thought it flowed real nice. I think so. We get a real good sense of what's going on and how where things are leading with the scene. I like the relationship between the and the mentor. You know that
Tara
that whole
and
relationship.
Wissia?
Yeah, Tara and Wissia. Yeah, I really liked how that worked. You know, a kind of a like a friendship that not just friendship, but it's really a nurturing relationship. You know,
Yeah.
between the mentor and the student.
Yeah, you're gonna be saying that a lot. That's all I'm going to say.
Of course, you know now that this has been pointed out, you are of course contractually bound to kill them at the soonest possible convenience, preferably at the most dramatic moment.
No,
it's not me. It's not me making this up. This is just the rules.
Nah, I don't always like following along with tropes. I kind of like subverting them every now and then.
Totally makes sense. I feel you.
All right, so yeah, question. So Tarek predictably didn't,
Yeah.
like it.
I don't. I think that it's just like there's just that one bit was distracting, and I kind of have to admit that I was just like, dang, that's a little bit. It's interesting little bit of dialogue there, but I was down to roll with it, but it was just like maybe like pause for a little bit. I have to admit.
Yeah, maybe I could have toned it down a bit more. I probably should.
Yeah, since like as far as I know, there are girls that are kind of busty in the military, as far as I'm aware.
Oh yeah, I'm not denying any of that. I just created this character Jareen to basically be the complete total asshole character who you're supposed to hate her. Like,
Yeah, that makes
We've
sense.
all done that. We've all created characters specifically to be a hate sink.
Yeah. That that's actually a good point, Becca.
Yeah. Maybe I could I'm gonna take that advice to heart and make it a little bit more subtle.
Yeah.
Because like it was a bit overt. Like I said though, this was a recently added in chapter. So yeah.
Plenty of time to edit it, you know.
Yeah.
To exchange that battle axe for a rapier as far as wit is concerned.
Yes. Precisely. Oh boy.
Uh-oh.
Huh? Okay.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
fair.
I'm trying not to.
Well, it's a learning experience.
Yeah.
You always learn.
I fucked up.
No, it's
oh God, you should have seen some of the stuff I wrote when I was a teenager.
Oh boy.
Oh my God, I am
editable.
so glad that shit has been lost to the ghosts of hard drives past.
Yeah, I think my first stuff.
Hmm.
So so um so Tarek got a bit of this syndrome.
Well, Danny kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet and Euron's forces. They certainly haven't forgotten about her.
We did get to enjoy it.
Well, yeah. Becca's fair.
Yeah,
She's got a good point over there. Nobody expects it to be
Yeah.
perfect the first time.
yeah.
The theme of my own chapter coming back to bite me in the ass.
And when in doubt, you could always just chalk it up to, a different society who has different standards.
Mhm.
I mean, it is in the future, so there's that.
Maybe norms have shifted. Maybe women are the ones that are more direct and blunt, whereas men are the witty class.
Hmm.
Who's
Nah,
to
I
say?
think I'm going to. I think I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that dialogue a bit to be less blunt because, yeah, I agree. That was it. It was definitely too much.
Yeah, it's kind of just like and like I try to be relatively nice because like and sometimes like I'll kind of like admit that like maybe like if I had the document to follow along with I could be a little bit better, but it kind of seemed like it was just like shooting abrupt segue into jerk um jerk entering the room, confrontation, then resolution with a good test score.
Yeah.
Did she take the test in
The
a previous chapter or?
Not in the previous chapter. This is a time jump. I
Oh,
haven't
okay.
made mention of it yet.
Oh, okay.
I figured
I
that
was-
this would be like the timeline would be that this is the day of after she took the exam. So she's just over here practicing her marksmanship.
Okay, I think that might actually be something to. Was the test mentioned in a previous chapter? That
No,
you would
it
have to
wasn't.
maybe put that in because I was a little bit confused when it happened. And he
Yeah.
kind of came out and gave him the results. they get they get kidding me. So it's basic. So basically, what you're saying is, where did I put it?
And if you don't like it, no offense, but you have boring taste and I don't want to be friends with you.
Wait, what?
Well, basically, no. I mean, like this. It's,
Oh.
Well, in a scientific sense, there is no accounting for taste.
true, and I do like your stuff, but I do like your stuff, Balerion. Oh, I'm interested to see more of it. I am excited for Count Balerion of House Terrors to be on shelves in Barnes and Noble at some point, or whichever publishing house you decide to go to.
Well, all I'm gonna say is that I hope that I can fix things up over here.
That and I. Balerion. Balerions are memer. Alrighty.
So I've got chapter 4 then.
Yep.
So done. Tell us a little bit about this this thing that I'm going to be reading in a moment.
Let me review really quick. It's been infrequent. Let me pull it up. Basically, this is a world in which gods exist, and the this person has been pulled out of the I can't remember. It's been a while. But basically, what is happening is in the last chapter, this girl was, I don't remember her name.
Triple.
Triple. Triple.
Yeah.
Okay. Triple has been either there's a resistance and then there's a formalized government. I'm not 100% sure on what it is. I can't remember. It's been a while since Aspiring Writer's been on. They kind of all blend together a little bit. But she's now in this little group because she chose that instead of being used as a comfortable life as a breeder. So because she has these unique abilities that make her extra valuable genetically speaking. However, the guy Nick managed to get her into a like his unit so that they can use her on the battlefield, and that's kind of the major thing that was established last chapter.
All right. So, with that background being set, let us continue with Chapter 4. Triple flinched as Nick snipped off another section of hair. Hold still, will you? This isn't easy when your hair is so filthy, Nick said. Do you want this to look choppy? Triple turned herself around on the stool to raise an eyebrow at Nick, glancing at his shaggy hair. This guy is giving me advice on hair? Nick turned her back around, snipping off more hair. She felt her neck tingle as she imagined those scissors nearing her neck. Can you do this in front of me? I need to see the back of your head, so no. Don't worry, I cut Jeffrey's hair myself all the time. And that's supposed to make me feel better? Can we just not cut my hair? Jeffrey's orders. Can you at least bring Will in here? She'd be a lot more comfortable if he was there to observe. Sorry, Jeffrey's orders, she finished, grumbling. After accepting their offer, Jeffrey had confined her to the medical bay as they worked out details. 3 days later, and she still wasn't allowed to leave for any reason. In addition to the confinement, she had informed that Will had been forbidden from seeing her while she was in confinement. She hadn't been told why. She had tried leaving, but embarrassingly couldn't figure out how to open the door. She'd watched Nick open it a few times, but when she repeated what he did, nothing happened. After that failed, she'd tried to pry it open, but the door wouldn't budge. She even tried to see if one of her abilities could help her, but except for breaking things by accident, she had no idea what she could do. They said she was a shapeshifter, but she seemed very locked into her current form, and she didn't want to try using the breaking power and accidentally break something else, like the monitor, or something not even in the room. Could we take a break? Just for a minute? Nick sighed. Fine, but just for a minute. I want to get this done quickly. She grinned as she slipped off the stool and stretched, enjoying the feeling. With her soreness and pain gone, she felt good. Better than she could ever remember. You seem to be feeling better, Nick noticed, grabbing his tablet for notes. Any dizziness or pains anywhere? Any odd feelings? No, I feel fine. Great, in fact. She flexed her arm, which she found out was quite toned when compared to the average human, from what Nick had told her. There were at least some benefits from her time at Wasin. Memories of her marches through the wasteland started to surface, but she shoved them down quickly. She swore she could start to feel the hot, dusty air again when she thought back to those days. Any memories of before your time on Wasin? Her brow furrowed. I thought you had concluded that I was sent there right after I was born. Will has concluded that, but there are others who are skeptical. So, no memories? No memories. Nick frowned, but put her response down. He put the tablet aside. Break is over. Back on the stool. She sat, obediently as Nick grabbed his scissors. Could you tell me what's going on with Will? Nick paused before chuckling. What's so funny? She asked. Nothing, just... It's almost like I'm an actual barber, giving you gossip while cutting your hair. It's funny. Yeah, I guess I can tell you. Not sure if I'll be able to explain it as well as him. What has he been trying to explain? Well, you see, mind hosts are not supposed to be able to just absorb knowledge from a person like you do. Otherwise, they wouldn't need an education. They have greater mental and learning capabilities that make them learn faster than the average person, but that's not what you're doing. You're copying knowledge from our heads and using it as if you had learned it. Well, this isn't completely surprising. I'm quoting Will when I say this, by the way, because potent hosts have been known to stretch and break certain rules that restrict ordinary hosts, but you are still a bit strange by the fact that you seem to still need experience in some areas. Evidence with how you talk slower. So we don't really know what you can just snatch from our heads and what needs to be taught through lessons or experience. You following? Kind of, she said hesitantly. You're lying. I know because I don't understand it and I'm the one repeating it. General idea is that we have no idea how to deal with your education, which is part of why you've been stuck here. Jeffrey wants to know why you even need to be educated when you can just absorb our knowledge, and Will has been trying to explain that's not how it works, without actually being able to explain how it works. If this is between Jeffrey and Will, why do you need to know about this? As the only other one on the ship with any real medical experience, Jeffrey wanted me to clarify and confirm some things. However, host abilities are somewhat of my area. Will's the professional on that front. She started to nod and earned a sharp tug on her hair. Keep still, he reminded her. Crossing her arms, she pondered about what Nick had said. The explanation itself was of no nonsense to her. But if Nick was right, the general idea was that her absorption of knowledge wasn't the catch-all she thought it was. She hadn't thought about whether or not she would have to be taught anything. Why would she? Learning to her was going to sleep and seeing what new information had popped in her head. Yet there was a slight pattern to what she had learned over her time there. Her mind didn't get random bits of knowledge here and there. It focused on certain subjects. She knew nothing about the state of the world around her, or the revolutionaries. Instead, she seemed to be progressing on how to talk and be social, picking up certain cues she hadn't recognized before. It had only been a few days, so perhaps her abilities would start absorbing different subjects. But it was odd, her abilities acted with such precision. Unlike the breaking of the vials or the glasses, this seemed precise, intentional. Except she wasn't the one controlling it. The door to the medical bay made a sound, making her perk up. Nick yelped at the sudden movement and went to the panel beside the door, opening it. She smiled as she saw Will enter. Serial, the purple Mackie female she had seen in the cargo bay, she had learned her name the same way she had with Nick, right behind them. Why didn't you open the door yourselves? Triple asked. Will raised an eyebrow. The door was locked. She felt her face redden as she mentally facepalmed herself. Of course it was locked. Nick's brow furrowed at the two. What are you doing here? You aren't allowed to see her till you and Jeffrey... Jeff and I came to a decision, Will said, cutting Nick off. I will be teaching Triple during my off hours. Triple kept her face passive, but was beaming inside. She'd rather have Will teach her than any other person on this ship. Nick relaxed. Good. Had me worried there. His eyes darted to Serial. How have you been doing? Serial didn't respond. So Nick turned his attention back to Will. So where will she be staying? Triple will be sharing quarters with Serial. Nick nodded slowly. So that's why you're here. Did you volunteer, or were you the last option? Cyril winced, her mouth twisting. It was me or Uriel, and Will convinced me not to let her stay in the same room as my sister more than she has to. She paused, and then added, and I'll take any excuse not to have to stay in the same room as Uriel. Yeah, I get that, Nick said, while slowly nodding. Well, I'm almost done here, just finishing up her haircut. Make it quick, Will said. You and I are going to check on the borons while Cyril gets Triple freshened up. Triple frowned as Nick went back to his cutting. Wait, you said you were going to be teaching me. Will gave her an apologetic glance. Still on duty, I'm afraid. Don't worry, Cyril will be in charge of you while I'm not there. Done, Nick exclaimed with a flourish. Cyril, you mind cleaning up for me? Cyril shrugged. Sure, I'm off duty. Thanks, Nick said with a wink, making Cyril scowl. Will and Nick left with a wave, leaving the two of them alone. Once gone, Cyril went over to where her hair had fallen and started piling it up. Mind getting a bag from the third drawer? Triple did as she was instructed, handing her the small bag. Cyril put the hair inside it and tied the top. She left the bag in the corner and started to leave. Shouldn't we throw that away? She asked shyly. Cyril cocked an eyebrow. You're a triple host. You'd think they're going to throw away prime DNA to study on? A chill went up Triple's back. Is that why Jeffrey ordered my haircut? Possibly. She hugged herself. It appeared that privacy wasn't something she was going to have much of. And seeing as Will hadn't protested this, she couldn't count on him to help her. So, what now? Giving you a shower, Cyril answered. She nodded for Triple to follow her, and left the room. Triple followed, before freezing at the entrance. This would be the first step she took outside this room. So insignificant a moment, yet she found that she couldn't breathe. She had done a lot of firsts these past few days. Why did this one feel so profound? Cyril noticed she was no longer following, and stopped, watching her curiously. Triple took a deep breath and stepped through the entrance. She looked around the corridor she had entered. Cyril had gone toward one end, with 3 doors surrounding her and a ladder going up the corner. Down the other end was the cargo bay, where she saw Nick and Will observing the borons. She walked over to Cyril, who pointed at the door on the left. This is the door to the lavatory. The door where you will use the receptacle and shower. Triple nodded and tried opening the door, only to have it stay stubbornly closed. It's locked? Cyril frowned before nodding. Yeah, you need a code to get in. Everyone has their own unique passcode so that the door can record who goes in and for how long to prevent anyone from overusing the shower. The ship has a limited supply of water, and so we have to control its usage. So what's my code? Cyril shrugged. Don't know. We might not have one yet. I'd have to ask Jeffrey. In the meantime, I'll input my code so you can wash away all the grime. She opened the lavatory door and Triple stepped inside. There was a sink to her right, with a mirror right above it. In it she saw herself and stared. Was that her? Her face was a mixture of black grime and orange dust, making it difficult to make out any features. Her newly cut hair now just barely reached her shoulders. She looked almost like the borons outside. She undressed and saw her lean figure, shocked at how strong she looked. She'd taken a few glances, but seeing it from this angle really showed how built she was compared to the rest of the crew. She wasn't as bulky as Jeffrey, but was just as defined. You done staring? Cyril asked. Triple jumped. She'd forgotten she was there. You use this to close the door. She tapped the panel beside the door. This here locks it, but don't use that today. That area over there is the shower. Triple looked at where Cyril was pointing. The shower was an area in the corner with a bit of raised floor to keep the water in, a panel on the side, and holes in the ceiling for water to come out of. She gave Cyril a nod and closed the door, tempted to lock it, but decided against it. Walking over to the shower, she pressed the panel. The shower started pouring down. She stepped in and yelped. The water was freezing. It was colder than anything she'd ever felt. Colder than when she first came onto the ship, colder even than when she had first felt the metal floor. She hugged herself as she shivered, curling up into a ball. How can they stand this? I can barely feel my arms. Black and orange water puddled at her feet as the grime and dust washed off. She watched it drain away, and she felt a weight leave her shoulders, as if she was casting off a part of what Wasin did to her. The thought comforted her, and she smiled slightly as she hugged her knees. When she couldn't see any more grime and dust being washed off, she turned off the shower, and she stepped away from the shower area. The door opened to let Cyril in, a bundle in her arms. She gave a look of surprise. Why are you shivering? The water is cold. Does her species not feel cold like I do? Cyril blinked. You realize you can increase the temperature on the panel, right? Triple gave her an incredulous look. No, she said through chattering teeth. Why wouldn't I know that? Cyril looked down and her cheeks darkened. Was she blushing? Yeah, that's my bad. I don't really have a good handle on what you do and don't know. Here, she handed her a towel. Triple snatched it out of her hands and wrapped it tightly around herself. She nodded at the bundle. What are you holding? Cyril proffered the bundle. These are your new clothes. They might be a tight fit, but they will do for now. Triple accepted the bundle. Thanks. Where did you get these? Cyril's cheeks darkened again. Yep, definitely blushing. That's actually from a previous squad member. We still have all her belongings. What happened to her? Cyril's expression fell, and Triple noticed that she was gripping her left arm with her right. She died. Triple looked down at the bundle, now holding it more gingerly. I see. Don't worry, we would have given you the clothes away eventually, she tried to reassure her. Best that you use them. Triple finished drying herself and got dressed. The bundle consisted of a dark green sleeveless top and a pair of trousers, both as tight as Cyril had mentioned, but comfortable. She glanced at herself in the mirror, and her eyes widened. Was that how she looked? Her hair, which she had imagined as black, was actually brown. A few different shades of brown, actually. She could see a dark, light, and a light strip going through the length of her hair. Her face had a round shape with a small nose, giving her a youthful look. And then there were the scars. Her entire body was riddled with them. None of them looked very fresh, except for the ones on her hands. Most were small, around the size of her fingers. But there was one that ran down from her forehead between her eye and nose and ended at her neck. She felt at the scar. No recollection of how she had gotten it. She didn't remember any of them, but they were there all the same. A reminder of her time on Wasin, even the parts she had no memory of. I almost forgot, Cyril said behind her. I'm supposed to give you this. Triple turned around and saw Cyril take out a red armband, her eyes twinkling. Triple took the armband, confused. All of you wear this. Why? Cyril pushed her cloak around to reveal her armband, which was orange. This is what we use to show rank. The symbol shows what rank you are. Her brow furrowed for a moment before realizing what that meant. So, I'm officially part of the squad? Cyril nodded, a small smile on her face. Try it on. Triple slowly put her arm through the band. It fit nicely. Tight enough to keep from falling, but loose enough to be comfortable. Welcome to Akina Squad, enlisted triple. Suriel probably thought that wearing the armband would make her feel proud. Instead, the band felt like a burden. There was no feeling of victory wearing it. It seemed more like a shackle than a reward. You'll need to wear that whenever you're on duty, unless you're leaving the ship, where you can leave it behind. Best not to be caught wearing that. What does the color mean? Suriel waved dismissively. Not important. They are meant to help distinguish who outranks who between the different branches in the revolutionaries. Since you are enlisted, your band is red, which is the lowest ranking color. Triple nodded. So what's your rank? Officer. That's the rank right above yours. And Will? Will's band had been white, and he seemed to have some level of authority with how he constantly ordered Nick around. He's lieutenant. Why? Just curious. What now? I thought I would show you to your new quarters. We are going to be sharing a room now, after all. Triple stepped inside her new living space. It wasn't much bigger than the medical bay, and most of the space was taken up by the bunk at the far side of the room. It might have felt cramped to most people, but right then, it felt like an impossibly large expanse. The bottom bunk is yours, Suriel started to explain. The drawer on the right has some more clothes for you to use. Don't touch that left one. That one is mine. The monitor over there is free to use any time, and you'll be given a standard issue tablet for work. A tablet? What would I need that for? Suriel shrugged. Depends on what work you're assigned. And if you're so inclined, you can do some personal research, like Will does. Triple knelt down and opened her drawer. Are these clothes also from the previous squad mate? Suriel nodded. It's all we have on hand. It won't be a problem, will it? Triple shook her head. No, it's fine. Glad to hear it, a voice said behind her. She whirled around, grinning. Will! Will stood just outside the entrance, peeking in. He stepped inside, a small curve in the corner of his lips. Well, what do you think so far? The room is fine, she said quickly. Will chuckled. I was talking about more than just the room. He focused on her armband. I see you got your rank. Congratulations on being the only Chaos Squad member to join at the rank of enlisted. I am? Will nodded. You normally would have to at least be the rank of officer to join the Chaos Squad, but since your circumstances are special, the council decided to make an exception. I see. She started to stand a little straighter. So will we be starting lessons? His smile widened. Nice to see you're eager, but you should rest. We'll start your lessons tomorrow. He exited the room with a wave, his coat trailing behind him. Suriel yawned, matching her own feelings of exhaustion. Triple laid on the bed and, despite herself, smiled. Things seemed to be going well. Perhaps her apprehension about joining the team had been a tad unnecessary. She drifted off to sleep, a feeling of excitement within her. That was when the nightmares started. And that's the end of the chapter.
Alright, that's pretty nice. I mean, it's better than what I got down. Yeah, that's pretty nice.
I don't know. I disagree, Occupation Army. Cold showers can be useful in sometimes.
Yeah.
It's a different it serves a different purpose, you know. Hot showers are more to relax you. Cold showers are like a jolt. They get you in and get you back in energy, you know?
Oh, Sparring's here.
Yeah, I just saw him. Let me. I figured out an entrance. What should I give him?
Okay, so I'm gonna be in the Discord chat after the stream's over. I'll be more than happy to discuss what some criticisms and try to see what we can fix up about my chapter over here because It's broken. I'm not going to make any. I'm not going to make any bones about it. It's just broken. It needs fixing.
Mm. Well,
But yeah, that was good.
alrighty. Well, I'm very, very happy to have you. If hopefully we can have you on again, and we'll be able to give you some more feedback on how like you can make this the best version of your book that you want it to be.
Yeah, because here's the thing. Um, Doreen is actually going to show up again in the next chapter, and there's going to be a horrible incident that occurs. You know what? I don't think any of you guys mind if I spoil what happens. She decides she wants to murder Wissia and nearly does so, while she gets caught and tackled to the ground by planetary security. And it's supposed to be an extremely scarring moment for Wissia that carries on throughout the rest of the book because she ends up looking down at herself because she let herself get goaded and she ran right into it. So, yeah. And I just want there to at least be some sort of reason behind the hatred that she has for her. So, yeah.
Okay,
I'll,
makes sense.
I'll explain like more.
And that'll
later,
be your next offering.
oh yeah, that's the next chapter for sure.
Cool. Well, I do need to um we're all
Not
good
to
guys,
distract
so
from
whatever.
Aspiring's work, though. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let's do. Alrighty, I think I have the thing.
The actual ethical system that you should all follow is nihilism. The world is empty. There is no point to anything, and you're just gonna die. So do whatever.
Sorry, I'm late. The test took a lot longer than I presumed.
No,
You're
hey,
fine.
what's up?
It's totally fine.
I
Yeah,
hope
just
I
need to
did
put
your
it a
work
little later.
justice.
Oh, you were fine. Granted, those are not the voices I would have picked, so it was just part of me was like, which character you're reading from?
Yeah, actually, I remember there was one particular moment in that big dialogue. There's at the very beginning when
Nick is talking and there's
Yeah.
two clump paragraphs, you thought Triple was talking and then corrected.
yeah, it's strange. Generally, what I do is when a character, at least for me, this is totally just my style. But whenever I have a character, with more than one paragraph of dialogue unbroken, what I do is I leave off the final quote, and then so that way it indicates that the sentence or the speech is incomplete.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, might do something like that. That or I'll just say he snipped another piece of hair to make it like, oh, this guy's still talking.
Yeah.
But yeah. So what you all think of it?
I think the descriptions were very good.
Yeah.
That was what I could see of it.
I think so. Definitely I really get a good sense that she wants to feel comfortable, but doesn't quite feel comfortable yet. She obviously trusts Will, but the rest of these strange new people are, yeah. Oh yeah. Good call on that, Balerion. Impassive is definitely the word I would have chosen. That one too. I did notice a couple of. I mentioned this a while back to Mothmaster. There are some words that are repeated, a little too closely together.
Yeah,
But other than that, I liked it.
It's definitely a good establishing bit, like maybe just like a few little editing problems or what I'm getting. Thing.
Yeah. Need a tad bit more refinement. There's also accidentally I noticed you said Chaos Squad rather than Chaos Squad, and that's because that's the previous name I had, and I for some reason, when you do Control F, the thing actually doesn't show me the words, so I just glossed over them by accident. So I didn't correct those by accident. My bad.
Yeah. Also, I thought, in particular, to the repetition, the moments where she looks at herself in the mirror before the shower and after the shower, they kind of they feel a bit too similar. You know, I mean, if there's I mean, just to I mean, I understand what they serve in terms of the
overall narrative,
story beats, but I mean, it feels like a little bit of a copy and paste situation. I know the words are different, and I'm not accusing you of that sort of thing, but I mean, it seems like maybe make the first one have a bit of a different feel,
a bit more bite to it.
Well, not so much a bite, but like less of a the second one appears like triumphal, like she's seeing how she actually looks, but with a little bit of the scars, and there's a bit more of a like a wonder. You could sort of make first one look like a little more of a like a disgust, or I don't know what you're trying to get in this. I don't know. Maybe I'm just putting words in your mouth.
I'm sure it is meant to be a bit more horrifying.
Yeah.
How much like she never has actually seen herself, and her first look basically is her covered with all the dust, grime, and bit of blood. That makes her look strange to her.
Yeah. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe it was just how the paragraphs are chopped up.
I'll certainly go back and look at that section.
Yeah. There's something to look at.
Yeah. Going into this, because I need to know how much you guys even remember of the last chapter.
I remember it very
hardly,
so I didn't get it.
Okay.
Like recently, I haven't been allowed, because it's currently Ramadan. I'm not allowed to eat or drink during the day. So once I finish up reading out my piece, my mouth is dry as all hell, and it hurts to speak. So, yeah, that's why I've been having some difficulty reading through this.
Oh no, you're totally fine. Yeah. How long is Ramadan? Like, is it just
It's
this
a
whole
month.
month?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
It's a month. It's almost over too. So thank God.
Yeah, I bet. I got a couple of Muslim coworkers. Luckily, of course, we work the dawn patrol, so he can still carb load while it's dark out.
Yeah.
Ha ha ha! Lucky him.
So do you like? I guess. Do you just? So is it possible to like say like just like go nocturnal for that period of time?
You're not supposed to.
Oh, I see.
Because it defeats the purpose of
that would
fast.
Yeah. I see.
Well, I imagine it is easier because like the Islamic calendar is a lunar calendar, so it it circles around through the solar year.
Yes,
so
and
I imagine
it's
when Ramadan
summer.
falls in winter, it's much easier to go through.
Oh my God!
Whereas
Yes,
summer.
it is an absolute blessing.
And let us, of course, have a moment of silence for the Muslims in Sweden and Norway who are above the Arctic Circle and have eternal sunlight.
Oh man!
Not drinking water is like hell.
Yes,
Yep.
especially when you're reading stuff aloud.
But
Alrighty.
the reason I had asked about the chapter 3 thing is because going into this, I was afraid that. So chapter 3 ended with her, like, going through a slight little breakdown and crying over the miserable choices that she had been presented, and then this chapter started with a haircut, and I was like, how does that have any tonal shifts that might be a bit off?
Now that you mention it a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, given that context, I would definitely put I don't know, maybe not another full chapter, but definitely some maybe tack on something to the end of the previous chapter where she like calms down and at least gets like a hold of herself.
Okay.
Well, my
mind if
thought was you first, was you?
mind if I clear things up for the count in the chat? No, you're supposed to break your fast at sunset, and yeah, I think it's Eid el-Fitr. Not sure. That's the end. That's the end of Ramadan. It's like, it literally just means, yeah, a feast, basically. It's like celebration. But no, we're not supposed to be fasting throughout all 30 days non-stop. We're supposed to eat at sunset. So yeah,
Mm.
like Carl stated.
Yeah, I imagine that, yeah, like you said, it's like when there's like perpetual sunlight, it's probably really, really rough.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely. I mean, I'm not sure how that works, but you know.
But yeah, my solution that I thought I could use with this is that I will be putting in what are kind of like intermission chapters, except they're a bit more spread out. They're flashback chapters for a different character that I'm going to be intersplicing throughout the book. I thought I could put one in there to kind of break up the two chapters a bit and put in something else. The only problem is those chapters also were not necessarily the most upbeat in the world, so
A little bit of slice of life moments to and break up the horrible torture to your characters.
Slice of life. Yeah, I don't know. How would you guys go about this?
I think just have her be thinking throughout. It's just like, what am I going to be doing? Because she seems a little bit too comfortable throughout the chapter.
Or if you absolutely if it is too difficult, you could just like make some moment during the just add some little blurb during the beginning of the chapter 4 about how she was still unstable from that the breakdown, still recovering. Just to give a little bit of a sense of continuity. So, in writing, you can kind of scooch around that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
If this were film, you'd absolutely have to put some scene in there. But with writing, you can sort of get away with telling, not showing in this regard.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
They always say show, don't tell, but sometimes showing gets in the way of the pacing.
Mm.
And in that situation, it is fine to tell.
You gotta be discerning in where you put stuff. And sometimes like either they're both tools that can be both used and misused at times. That's a good point.
Oh, sorry, I just broke up. What did you guys just say for the past 5 seconds?
Oh no, I just
God
said like.
damn it.
No,
my internet's frying me.
So yeah, it's show don't tell isn't necessarily like useful all the time. You got to be discerning about when to tell and when to show. So
you guys were just doing a slight telling in this one, either in the beginning of the chapter or when she's like recalling the past few days, or at least Carl is.
Sounds like a good plan. Yeah, I think that's a good plan.
Okay, yeah. And how is the tone in the chapter itself, not including the previous one?
I didn't notice anything jarring.
Yay.
Flowed pretty well. Like she's just kind of getting into it. So is like the naturally toned body just something that she's able to do, or like how does that work exactly? Since I got the feeling that she's kind of emaciated, or maybe that was just me.
So she should not be quite as strong as she should be. She should be fairly scrawny and starved, but her shapeshifting abilities have basically allowed her to be superhuman in that regard.
Hmm.
So she's much stronger than she should be.
I took Brandon Sanderson's creative writing course. I was able to sit on it.
Really?
Yeah, I live in Utah, and I'm like 30 minutes away, like 20-minute drive away from BYU. So I was able to
Sweet.
just attend, which was nice. Okay. So, since I
think you're up.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
So, I thought I'd actually so since last week apparently disturbed everybody.
Yeah, I tried finding that disturbing part you said was in 42. I could not find it. Where is it? All I saw was a bicycle thing. Or a race of some sort.
Oh, I think
Where is
maybe
this?
I think maybe that's like the one before. Maybe I'll clip it out, download it, and re-upload.
Yay.
Upload as its own thing. I can't help it.
Hey, when you meet the Sanderson and learn stuff from him, you need to brag about it.
Yeah. So the last one was like aromas that shocked the chat. So this one I'm going to do something a little bit more conventional. For context, this is Dreams of Dragonlords. It will be the 6th. I'm not doing that yet. No, don't worry. Okay, I guess I know that one potential sale is gone. But that's not for another year or two, maybe. I don't know. Basically what has happened so far is Prince Aemon has and his dragon Meraxia are on a trip south to Harag, and because the king, his dad, has sent an ambassador down south to arrange a marriage between him and the Princess of Harag. So, and Aemon has just barely gotten his mother and his sister. It's not incest, they're not biologically related.
Your laughter makes me so concerned.
Why?
Because what are you laughing about when you're like, they're not biologically related in any way? They're not. Proceeds to laugh. Suspiciously.
I don't buy it.
Oh, no, for sure they are not. They are not biologically related. I just
do they think they are? Because that's something you do.
They thought they were, yeah. They think they're half siblings. She's just got a horrible crippling paranoia of anybody who's not family members.
I agree with Becca on this one. You're like, yeah, they're not actually siblings. They're not. It's like, does it matter?
Yeah. Anyway, so this is definitely people who are not related falling in love. So, or at least like meeting. And a little bit of the setup. Okay. The oasis city of Canon Ra gleamed like silvery metal against the golden sand of Harag. Rounded domed towers of gray stone topped the interior palace towers, with the main palace of bronze in the center of the main keep. An enormous sprawling city spread out around the palace, trees and flowers sprouting everywhere like splashes of color on a white canvas. Princess Illyria barely noticed. She was more focused on the heavily sweating, rather pudgy man wearing very, very thick green wool clothing, standing before them in the private chamber. The thigh-high black leather boots, in particular, must be torture. By contrast, Illyria felt completely comfortable in thin orange silk. Same went for her brother. So this Silva prince is coming south. Her older brother Martigan the elephant Prince of Harag, Defender of Sandfall, and Wraith of the Desert, remarked dryly, absently clicking his swarthy fingers against the chair. They'd intentionally provided Lord Ironwood, such an incongruously stubborn name for such a pushover of a man, to and a chair, or not to put him off balance, or rather, more unbalanced than he already was. She almost felt bad for the poor man, especially with her brother's unwavering gaze fixed upon him. How long before he arrives? Ironwood dabbed at his forehead with a handkerchief. I do not know, sir. How disappointing, Martigan remarked coolly, which served only to make Ironwood start sweating even more. News of him and his dragon flying over the land will likely reach here soon. Ironwood swallowed and stroked his beard, clearly trying to calm himself. I have not seen the prince in a few months since I have been serving as ambassador, though reports of his heroism have reached me. Reports that you have so graciously provided. Alaric smiled comfortably at the fat older man. Reports that might have been inflated to increase your silver prince's clout. Martigan leaned back in his chair. How do I know that you have been relaying these stories accurately? I swear I've told you nothing but the truth about Prince Aemon. The Ironwood puffed himself up, almost like a pufferfish. Alaric concealed a laugh behind her hand at how accurate the comparison was. He is more than worthy of wedding your sister, my lord. Then I look forward to meeting this prince of yours, my lord. Martigan slowly stood up. Thank you for informing me of this latest development in negotiations. Truly, this Prince Aemon must be someone worth knowing. Indeed he is. Ironwood dabbed his forehead with his handkerchief, only to stuff the already soaked piece of cloth into his pocket and retrieve the second from another pocket. Forgive me, even after all this time, the heat does not agree with me. Actually, the room itself was designed to close in the heat, though Alira and Martigan were practiced at ignoring the temperature. Alira took a deep breath and toyed with a cushioned Essel on her chaise lounge absently as Martigan and Ironwood walked out of the room. The prince's warrior's hand on the ambassador's pudgy bureaucrat shoulder. As soon as they were gone, Alira slid a book from under the chair and started reading. Elven poetry was so different than her own people's works. The long-lived race had a strange symmetry to their writing, and it required a little bit of understanding of the form in order to figure out the true mastery of the poetry. Each rhyme was set near the beginning of the sentence and close to the end, the pattern replicating itself throughout the poem and creating a secret message to be reassembled afterward. It amused Alira to pick out the hidden message, a brain user that never failed to excite her faculties. Hopefully this silver prince enjoys reading, she murmured, picking out the words of the secret message within the poem. Ironwood makes him seem like a great warrior, but hasn't talked about much else. Aemon and Meraxia. Axia shot across the landscape in the dead of night, dark scales blending perfectly with the dark sky. Down below they could see the movements of a pride of lions stalking a group of skinny cows he remembered as wildebeest, eyes glowing in the darkness. Aemon peered through his dragon's sharp eyes, carefully observing the beasts prowling through the sparse brush of the savannah. The pride had surrounded the herd, then attacked. A majority of the wildebeest were able to take off and run, but the quicker lions sprinted toward a pair of the creatures, leaping onto their backs and bringing them down. In short order, the pride began feeding on their prey, growls and snarls rising into the air. Good for them, Meraxia growled approvingly. They're good pack hunters. Yeah, they are, Aemon agreed. You're still better. Meraxia preened as they soared toward a large rise in the ground. They were fairly close to Canonra, but based on what Aemon had studied about the kingdom, the capital was very focused on the worship of Inara, their sun goddess. In fact, it was the central hub for that sect of the religion. If he were to arrive in the middle of the night when Tashin ruled, it would be seen as a bad omen. So he had carefully planned so that he would arrive at high noon, when they believed that the power of Inara was at its strongest. Sighing contentedly, Aemon rolled out his mat and laid down. Well, maybe we'll dream sweet dreams. He closed his eyes and let himself drift off. The vision started as soon as he fell asleep. He saw a small black dragon chained down by bands of ice, a wolf bursting into a group of villagers and killing all of them, only to raise them up as wolves, a snake slithering up to a dragon and wrapping itself around this larger creature's neck. Still more abstract things, a man falling into a pool of algae coated blood, a short knight emerging from a group of trees holding a shield with a minstrel emblazoned across the wood, a lion bowing to a large mountain, himself else walking through sunlit sleep surrounded by people with literal knives for hands and eyes. When morning dawned, Aemon rose and wrote down his visions. He puzzled them out later. Other things required his attention. In short order, he released the messenger raven from its cage on Meraxia's back. Tied to its leg was a message for Lord Ironwood, with instructions on when he would be coming so that the royal family could get a good view of Aemon's arrival. Once the raven had begun to fly off, Aemon unstrapped his armor from the pack and started putting on the black scale mail shirt onto his body. Shifting his shoulders, he took a deep breath and did up the straps. Carefully, he strapped on his sword, then pulled his glove onto his six-fingered hand. He dipped some water into a rag and wiped his face to complete the routine. How do I look? Aemon asked, spreading his arms to the side. Meraxia flicked her tail as she gave him a cursory examination. You look fine, she remarked, shrugging her massive shoulders. I hope this girl likes you. I hope I like the girl. Aemon clambered on his dragon's back and strapped himself into the saddle. All right, the raven should have arrived. Let's grab some food before heading into the city. Meraxia spread her wings and leaped off the edge, eyes scanning the area for something to eat. Face sweating profusely, Lord Ironwood dabbed at his forehead with his already soaked handkerchief. This place was wreaking havoc on him, even after spending a few months here. During the day, it was hotter than hell, and at night it was colder than ice. Trying to conceal how much he was perspiring from the king and his sister was no easy task. Please, Prince Aemon, he sought desperately, please make a good impression. I see he's planned his arrival very precisely, Mardigan remarked, hands clasped behind his back. I'm impressed at his timing, at least. Ironwood smiled nervously and glanced toward the east, where Aemon said in his letter where Aemon had said in his letter he'd be arriving from. As if thinking of the prince had summoned him, and a deep roar blasted across the land. Jumping in surprise, everyone on the wall top glanced toward the east as a large red and black dragon soared over the sand dunes. Alira gasped as the dragon shot toward the city at astonishing speed. This creature skirted the walls and gracefully circled the city. The royal siblings gazed in wonder as the dragon executed incredible acrobatic maneuvers in midair, spinning, diving, and weaving through the air as dexterously as a fish in the sea. Even Ironwood himself admitted that Meraxia was the most graceful dragon he'd ever seen, and Prince Aemon guided her as if he'd been born in the saddle. Amazing, Lyra whispered, gazing up at the dragon dancing through the air on crimson wings. Indeed, Ironwood said proudly. Our Silver Prince is Aemon himself, come again. Very impressive, Mardigan remarked. How long before he descends? I think. Suddenly, Meraxia dove toward the wall, causing the onlookers to yell in surprise. including Ironwood, to his eternal shame, like a little girl. The dragon halted her ascent and landed on a bare patch of wall, the titanic beast's wing claws gripping the stones in a vice-like grip. Prince Aemon sat atop his dragon's back, looking every inch a true Dragonlord. Silver hair and pale purple eyes flashed as he easily unstrapped himself in the saddle and slid off his dragon beast's back to the stones below. He wore a simple shirt of dark scale mail, though he wore no metal gauntlets, only a pair of thin black gloves, likely to cover his six-fingered left hand. He raised his helm and sat on his saddle, though his gloves remained. Prince Mardigan, Princess Alira? Aemon bowed, pressing his right hand to his chest in a gesture of respect. May you live forever. I am honored by your invitation, Your Highness. Mardigan reciprocated the gesture, as proceeded a prince to a prince, though Alira curtsied without the gesture. Welcome, Prince Aemon. May the light of Inara shine upon you. You chose your time of arrival well. I've always been fascinated by your culture, Your Highness, Aemon smiled warmly, though he conspicuously kept his six-fingered hand behind his back. Likely a smart choice. Eyes flicking to the princess, Aemon bowed low and put out his hand. My lady, I am pleased to finally meet you, he said, voice extremely respectful. Reports of your beauty fall short of reality, though I look forward to seeing you to charm and grace for myself. The princess blushed slightly at the praise. You flatter me, Highness. Ironwood smiled as he examined the two young people. Both were very different. One was quite tan with deep black hair, the other very pale with silver hair. The princess had slightly more rounded features, while the prince was more angular, but their eyes were the most disparate thing about them. Alira's brown eyes occasionally flicked to the side as if she were distracted, while Aemon's were fixed on the princess's face. They seemed to like each other, but Ironwood couldn't let this spark fizzle away. Prince Mardigan, he put in, causing Aemon and Alira to glance at him. Does Prince Aemon meet with your approval? Despite Ironwood's best efforts to seem confident, a hint of a quaver entered his voice. Mardigan eyed Aemon casually. From what I see, he does, he agreed. But time will tell if my opinion is reduced or improved. Aemon tilted his head and gazed at Ironwood, eyes as penetrating as a sword. Sweat beaded on his face as he glanced away from his prince's unflinching glare. Well then, shall we retire to the palace? Yes, that does sound quite fitting, Martin agreed, nodding toward his guards. As her brother made her way down the steps, Alira looked up at Aemon and offered her arm and to the young prince with a shy smile. Lord Ironwood has told you a number of stories about you. May I call you Aemon? Of course you may, the prince remarked, still gazing at the princess as he gently took her arm. If I may be permitted to call you by your name. Alira smiled and nodded eagerly. Is it true you fended off half a dozen men defending Lord Bale, the Bloody Hand, as he lay wounded against the Stormland rebels? It was 2 men, and neither of them was more than a foot soldier. Aemon glanced at Ironwood, causing him to blush. My Lord Ironwood has received rather inflated reports of my supposed prowess. Ironwood swallowed and tried to speak up in his own defense. Those damned couriers had made the prince's exploits sound so boring, but Alira's response prevented him. Oh, really? She asked as they walked down the steps toward the town streets. What about when you bested all comers at the tourney commemorating your sister's birth? I was 2nd place, Aemon shrugged. Lord Vorian Evenstar broke more lances than me in that particular tilt. Alira's eyebrows raised in interest. It seems as though you have a few interesting stories to tell. Honestly, I'm not terribly proud of all the fighting I've done, Aemon shrugged. Ironwood felt like he was going to either burst with agitation or melt into a puddle of shame. I'd much rather talk about music or literature than fighting. It's not terribly scintillating unless both sides are comparing different tactics or retelling war stories. Alira's eyes were distinctly interested as the Silver Prince escorted her through the streets of the city. "You're different," she said finally, which caused Ironwood to sag in relief. "Perhaps, but I've been talking too much." Eamon chuckled, eyes still on the princess's face. "Tell me about yourself." "I love poetry," Alira said eagerly. "I love reading Elvish poems in particular. They're so complex and interesting." Ironwood felt the weight on his shoulders lessen with each and every word spoken by the two young people. They got along. They liked each other. Thank the great dragon, this might work after all. And that'll conclude it.
I see.
I have no comments. Pretty good.
I do. I like seeing the prince who seems very interested in more what Stormlight would say is feminine activities.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I see you're trying to do the accents, of course.
Yeah, and not very well. I just stopped because I was just...
God damn it, Carl!
Carl just proceeds to flex while telling you you're doing your accents badly without even saying it.
I cannot help you.
Yeah.
Whenever you do this accent, you'll become so much more of an asshole. But it is the way of things.
Yes.
Yeah, I swear, when you do accents, you normally have to think like the person.
Exactement.
Yes, it is. It was a very good reference. Yeah, he is a decent fighter, but he much prefers like intellectual pursuits, and it definitely like makes her like him a little bit more. It's kind of I think I think it was School of Movies in one of their improved. Sorry, I misread it. I think it was like when somebody is like introduced as smart and like is reading something. It makes you like them a little bit more than if they're kind of ditzy. At least like that's what I've found. That's what I've heard, and that kind of fits nicely. I still hear. At least I tried to do that with Alira and Eamon. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
Is this the first time in the narrative that you've gone into a more like a desert location?
First time in the narrative? No. This is I think this will be the second or I think third time in this particular series that we've been down south going into more deserty areas.
Right.
All right.
I'm kind of skipping around in the timeline. Timeline where it's just like I think like this is like book 7 of the series at this point. Maybe 9 if you count the novella, but the novella is just a novella. It's not long enough to be a book.
Yeah.
But I have very much enjoyed this writer's showcase. Thank you all for coming.
All right. Thank you very much. Like I said, if anybody else has any more criticisms or wants to discuss my work, I'm in the Discord. I'm gonna be on a voice chat more specifically.
Yeah, same here. You actually can find my shit in the story sharing place.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got my own author forum. apparently.
Nice. Yeah,
Really?
you
Yeah.
do.
Right.
Yeah, feel free to
Yeah.
come along and chat me up. Also, check out my Patreon. That's always fun.
Yep. And you can also check out my author forum in the Discord. I'm also on Goodreads if you want to ask me questions. Either one is totally works, and Goodreads is now going to help me. Hopefully, I'm going to be able to do some stuff on Goodreads so that I can market myself on Amazon more efficiently, because that's the main thing that I need right now. I've got enough content to be able to make a substantial amount of money. I just need to get my word out. Anyway, thank you all for coming. I will be on White Stream tomorrow. About what, I'm not totally sure. We're not totally sure yet, but it will be interesting. I believe it's at 2 MST. I'm excited for that. Please join us for that. And then on Monday and possibly Thursday, I'm not sure, we will be finally concluding Fire Can't Kill a Dragon.
Wow.
Yes. Akos,
Yeah.
would you also like to chill before we leave?
Me?
What?
Of course.
We have
Yeah.
all four of us have shield. Would you like to join in on this?
I exist, and I'm also in Discord.
Yay for existing!
Oh,
Alrighty.
And,
yeah.
Existence is woke.
and I got a couple of videos on my channel which has nothing to do with writing, so if you want to check it out.
Hyper death. Yeah.
Yeah, that's been a long series you've been doing.
Yeah.
Boy.
Alrighty. Well,
All right.
we will see you guys later. Adios.
See ya.
Cheers. Bye.